It's been 20 years since 9/11. Today's college freshmen, they weren't even alive then. And with our busy lives and a relentless 24-hour news cycle, we're in danger of letting 9/11 fade away from our cultural memory. We won't let this happen. Iron Light Labs presents the 20 for 20 podcast, 20 heroic stories about 9/11 for the 20th anniversary. I'm Nils Jorgensen. I was a New York City firefighter for almost 22 years until I contracted the rarest form of leukemia from cleaning up Ground Zero and was forced to retire from the job I loved. I'm lucky to be alive. Many of my best friends aren't. But this isn't about me. It's about the heroes of 9/11 and its aftermath, who forged good out of evil. Love amidst the taking of 2,977 innocent lives, and about an equal number who've died since then from 9/11 related illnesses. Today's story, episode 2 of 20.
My name is Makram, but they call it short name Mac. M-A-K, last name is Hanna, H-A-N-N-A. And I used to work with the World Trade Center Construction Division on 88th floor. During this time, actually, my boss was Frank Martini, that he did not really survive 9/11. Pablo Ortiz also did not survive 9/11. I remember that day very well, and every day in my life, I always pray for them and pray for everyone really died during 9/11. And always in my heart and my mind and my everything that I do, I always think about 9/11 because it's part of me.
This is the story of Mac Hanna, the Egyptian immigrant, Frank Martini, the Italian, and Pablo Ortiz, the Hispanic and Navy SEAL. Best friends in this great melting pot of a country. 3 civilians who were part of a group of 5 guys that put their lives at risk, saved between 50 and 77 lives that day, and only Mac is alive today to share their incredible stories. But first, a few words about our generous sponsor. We want to give a special shout out to the folks at Iron Light Labs who made this podcast possible. They're a nonprofit that empowers purpose-driven people to change the world, and they're committed to telling untold stories, like Larry Williams, who spent 42 years in prison. His story is featured in First Week Out, a short documentary made in partnership with the Atlas Network that follows Larry's pivotal first week of freedom. Every week, 10,000 Americans like Larry experience their first week out of prison. Within 3 years, at least 60% won't make it and will end up back in prison. Iron Light Labs is telling Larry's story to encourage viewers to join the thousands of people and organizations across the country who are helping individuals like Larry beat the odds. Check out the trailer and stay updated on the film's release at firstweekout.com. And now, let's get back to the story. Mac, Frank, and Pablo worked on the 88th floor of Building 1, the North Tower, the first tower that was hit. Mac was on the east side of the building when he heard a huge bang, but he didn't have a clue that it was a plane. Who would?
At that time, we did not know really what's happening. Matter of fact, because I worked for World Trade Center Construction Division, all of us we thought right away, this is basically maybe we've been having a problem on 75th floor. They had the pump, the water pump. So they got the water from the river. It bumped to 44, then to 75, 5th floor. So all of us we thought basically there's a problem with the water pump or something. So after what happened, basically the building was shake and we saw some fire coming from the northeast corner because the airplane actually entered 92nd floor between 92nd and 93rd floor on the northeast corner. And at that time, I was actually one of the fire warden on the floor itself, which basically just in case of emergency, we contact operation downstairs. And normally operation, which is on a concourse level, they tell us what to do. At that time, we tried to call operation. Basically, the connection was not really working and had to actually, because my floor was on fire. The 88th floor northeast corner was on fire. Matter of fact, one of our secretary, Elaine, she actually was on fire and she died that day. And Frank Martini assured us not to leave the floor at all because Frank Martini actually, God rest his soul, he survived actually in 1993 bombing. If you remember 1993 bombing on basement. So he was telling us, don't worry about it. The one thing we have to worry about is the smoke. And after a while, we see that our floor was on fire, so we decided actually to take the journey to walk out. And we couldn't really get in connection with anybody. I knew that day, basically, everybody's calling 911, everybody's calling operation. So we started leaving, actually, the 88th floor.
Mac, Frank, and Pablo had ventured out into the uncertain chaos of their floor to find a stairwell that everyone could get to. They found that the ceiling had collapsed in the main corridor. The walls around the elevators were gone. The men's bathroom had vanished. But they found a path, and they cleared debris to make it safe, ultimately bringing between 24 and 39 of their 88th floor colleagues to safety. And once they were all in that stairwell, Frank's wife, Nicole, understandably asked him to come down those stairs with her.
I saw the encounter. She was begging him. We're on the stairwell. Everybody's out. We heard the banging from 89th floor. She was basically 3 steps down, or 4 steps down. Frank, I'm not leaving until you come. In the middle between them, and he still look, I will meet you downstairs. And it seemed like Nicole actually had feeling, you know what I'm saying? And she was begging him, but he will not. He said, no, I'm going to stay to make sure. Because Frank was also the head of I was a fire warden. Paul Ortiz was a fire warden. And Frank was the fire warden on the floor itself. Then once we let everybody walk out of the building, I stayed only Frank Martini, Paul Ortiz, and myself. We heard some banging coming from the 89th floor. Frank insists to go to see why somebody knocking very hard. So we decided to just walk all the way to the floor.
These guys were going upwards into greater danger to help others when almost everyone else was going down to escape. They were civilians who didn't have to do this, except that they knew that they had to do it.
And at that time we discovered that a group, they worked for MetLife Insurance Company. They were trapped because the door get jammed, that they could not open the door. Paul Ortiz was a good, I call him, he was an engineer, but he's a good construction worker. He had a crowbar. So we managed to open the door for them on 89th floor. Some of them, they came out. Sadly, some of them, they couldn't make it out. And then we looked in, we saw actually that floor was also on fire.
Mac, Frank, and Pablo saved 23 lives on that floor.
Then when we came down to 88th floor, we find a man, his name is Mo Lipson. Mo actually was one of the people who worked during the design of the World Trade Center. So we're debating who can take Mo Lipson and walk down, all the way down. Being the youngest one of them, Frank said, Mac, why can't you take care of him? So we walked all of us together from the 88th floor to the sky lobby on 78th floor. You know, the building itself had 2 major sky lobby, one on 44th floor and one on 78th floor. So walked all the way to the sky lobby.
While there, they saved more lives, which Mac didn't even mention. I had to ask him about it. People were trapped in an elevator and they broke it open. And yet in another elevator that was there, their friend Tony Savis was trapped and they were unable to free him.
We tried hard. We tried to push. He did not even make it on 9/11. And at that time, all of us were confused what's happening. That moment, actually, they told us an airplane hit the building by an accident. Everybody trying to manage to get out. And sadly, Frank Martini was assuring us the building is very strong, nothing will happen to the building. We survived 1993 bombing, it should be no problem. So it was 4 of us leaving 78th floor, the sky lobby. Then after that, Frank Martini, which I call him a hero of 9/11, Frank Martini and also Paul Ortiz, they decide to go to every floor to make sure that everybody out of the floor. And I always say these guys are really give their life for everyone. And they saved a lot of life, especially for the people who work for the IT in the building itself. Every floor had an IT room. Most of them, they have their headphone and they do not know what's going on. From 78th floor going down, so we agreed that we'll meet downstairs by West Side Highway entrance from building 1. Then I took Mo Lipson, and while I was going, the traffic was stopped a little bit because building 2 was hit, was about half an hour after building 1 was hit. Matter of fact, I did leave Mo and went to one of the floors, and I had the radio with me. I used to go to contact, we had our own channel, so I contacted Frank Martini and Pablo. They said, look, already I went to some of the floors to make sure that everybody's out. And I came back to Mo Lipson, and I start taking him all the way down until we get to 21st floor. 21st floor actually was a station. I think one of the firefighters there stayed with them for a while. Mo Lipson at that time needed some medical assistance, so they helped him. And I remember one of them, I think Mr. Brown, I remember the last name Brown, and he talked to me about really, do you know anything about the building? So I start show him where the building, how you get out of the building. Matter of fact, one of the funny story that all of us will get so thirsty, I told him 99% you will find a lot of vending machines in the freight elevator lobby. So all of us went to the freight elevator lobby, we broke the vending machines, and all of us would get iced tea and water and everything.
It might sound odd that they were spending so much time on the 21st floor, given all the danger that Mac had already dealt with. But he and his colleagues who worked for the building's construction division truly didn't think it would collapse. And Mac wanted to wait for Frank and Pablo to reunite with them on that floor. And then he was told that he couldn't. The fire captain heard from his chief that civilians can't stay in the building any longer, and he told Mac that they would have to leave.
I always say I owe him my life because if I stay, I wouldn't be here today. He insists for me to leave. And then I took Mo and I started something inside me telling me, you have to run, you have to leave. I would think 9:45, we heard a huge banging. It turned out to be building 2 was down completely. And even we lost all the emergency power inside the stairwell. And it seemed like after 1993 bombing, they had like a fluorescent painting on the floor. So that would actually help us. So it took me for a while to leave the building. The concourse level, the water was up to my knee at this moment. And while I was going, actually, also the traffic stopped a little bit. I went to a couple of the floor. I see some people actually inside. I said, guys, you have to leave. Everybody has to leave. Let's all of us who are leaving right now. So we started moving down. We get to the concourse level. It seemed like after building 2 fall down, all the chandeliers, the building was basically like a war zone. But we could not really distinguish where the exit is because everything was dark and black and dust. And the water up to our knee here. I saw a lot of dead bodies. So we went out of the building 1, closer to Vision Street and West Side Highway. And I will never forget, as soon as I came out, I was so exhausted because that's like almost 1 hour and a half from the building was hit until. And then I was calling on one of the police officers across the street. They told me, come walk slowly because the object comes from the top floor. So honestly, I looked up and I see bodies flying. And that really, it touched me. I was a little bit shaken. And I was actually, matter of fact, I was screaming to I said, I need some help. I'm carrying a man, he's 100 years old. So I carried him. He reached a point he could not really walk at all. I carried him. He was very light and short, actually. I have a picture of him. Then he kicked me in my chest. He said, by the way, I'm 89 years old. He made me laugh, but he really put a smile in my face during this very difficult time.
Did you actually have to carry Mo down?
I did carry him when we get to the concourse level. He was basically, because there was a lot of water and dead body, I did really put him on my shoulder and I carry him and all the way from the exit area. That's why it took us longer than normally. And if I, by myself, I would have basically, it wouldn't take 10 minutes or 5 minutes to walk out of the building, but it took us a long time because he's going very slow and he will get tired.
Yes.
And I had to make sure that I have like a bottle of water with me. And in fact, I had an iced tea with me. I will never forget that because it kept with me until I get out of the building, actually. I walked out of West Side Highway to the other side of the building, and I think it was like 10, 21, and then the building fell down at that time. Somebody told us I was actually the last person walking out of building 1 toward West Street exit, because I was told by some reporter one time that there's an image of a picture of somebody taking it for somebody carrying somebody out of the building, but it doesn't tell who that person exactly, but there's an image. Then after that, the building, I was out, I would say 10:20, 10:21, 20, I would say that which is few minutes, the building fell down 10:26, so you're talking about few minutes before the building fell down.
Mac and Mo might have been the last 2 people to escape the North Tower.
I attend actually almost about 44 funerals after 9/11. Matter of fact, one of my friends used to call me and said, look, there's a funeral message, for example, firefighters, I felt I don't even have to know the person, but I must go to honor that person here. Until my wife told me, "Yani, you're getting very emotional," because every morning I just want to wake up in the morning and find where is a funeral, one in Brooklyn, one in Queens, one in upstate New York. So I would basically drive around and just basically attend. It doesn't matter, do I know that person or not? That's not really matter for me, but I get connection with a lot of them. Also, Mo, I consider him give me another chance in my life, because what happened, if Frank did not ask me to talk Mo, or if basically Mo was not there, 100% I wouldn't be here, because my nature also, I'm not gonna leave my two friends, and we never thought the building will fall down. Frank Martini and Pablo Ortiz, they basically give their life because they're going from one floor to another floor to make sure that everybody's out with 100% conviction that, nothing will happen to the building, all of us will be safe. But sadly, they did not make it that day, and they did not find the body of Frank Martini and Pablo Ortiz. I felt God saved my life for a reason. Especially, I heard so many stories, and one of my friend, his name is John Goon, actually. He did survive 9/11, but he still have, he was electric engineer. I heard that when he was going out of the building itself, fuel came on certain people and died. And here you go, you skip the building, but the fuel came on you, and they caught fire right away. And I felt from that moment, I really want to give my life a little bit to serve God. I was serving here in the church. I started serving more and more.
Mac was a member of St. Mary Coptic Orthodox Church in East Brunswick, New Jersey.
And really realized 3,000 people that day, they say goodbye to their loved one, and they never come back home. I really started to appreciate life so much. And I felt that life is a gift from God, really. Every day is a gift you do not know. Thank God all of us who survive coronavirus, right, what's happening, but it's been tough year for all of us, really. I felt, look, let me really serve God. And then I started serving here the way the church choose a priest. When they see somebody serving the youth and serving everybody, they selected that person. The congregation has to vote. And I was actually selected to become a priest 2005, November 2005. And I feel that I'm not even worthy to serve God, but it's really God that chose me to serve Him. And I feel that's a calling. Therefore, we have to honor God every day in our life. Simon, he changed his name to Peter. Saul, he changed his name to Paul. Therefore, the tradition of the church, they give a choice. Would you like to change your name? I love St. Mark so much. And even my son, his name is Mark. But he's actually Mark Senior, because he was named Mark before he became Mark.
So Mac Hanna is now Father Mark Hanna. Father, have you been back to the New Freedom Tower yourself?
You know what? I have not. And that's probably as much as God gave me so much strength. But my wife, and we were just talking about last week, actually, because my sister-in-law was visiting me. I have not got the power to go to Ground Zero yet, or to visit the museum. In fact, I spoke to Mike Young and Frank, some of my friends, John Hardy. They've been asking me, come. And I don't have and I'm sure God will give the power, but I pray to God to do it just before I pass away, to just to go to honor my friends, actually, in Ground Zero.
But right now, it's probably just still so raw for you, and it's upsetting, I guess. I know I've only been down there a couple times, and I have a very hard time doing it. But for you, your experience in being in the building and being there as it went down upon you, and that must be just very tough to deal with.
I will actually, after 9/11, I have the card. I was chosen to work in Ground Zero. So I did work in Ground Zero for almost like a month, because I was there on September 27, because I have the card they issued.
The ID
they
card,
have the ID
yes.
card. It's written on civilian, and it just had, like, before you get to the Ground Zero, they had like the center there. You have to go to get the card.
Yes.
And I worked there, but what happened one day, I was looking for. Honestly, I was looking for Frank and Pablo Ortiz, because we're looking for the rubbish, and I just they are cleaning, but in the meantime, I hard with my two friends, actually. Then I broke down big time. Then came one of the chaplain to talk to me. I couldn't imagine myself. I'm walking on the rubbish building one, which means it could be some of my friends, actually. There's dust on the ground. That was very difficult. Yeah.
I can understand that.
Very difficult, to be honest.
Especially a building you spend a large portion of your life actually helping keep run every day, and now must have been kind of haunting too.
Honestly, I fall in love with the World Trade Center, to be honest with you, big time. Matter of fact, building one, when you walk on the concourse level,
Yes.
selling coffee on the left-hand side of Citibank. One time, one of the director of the World Trade Center was walking by, and actually I walked in and I see a lot of garbage and a lot of things. So I started to kneel on my knee and just cleaning. He walked in, he said, "Who you are?" At that time, he gave me a free breakfast, and when you get the free breakfast, you go to Windows on the World, actually.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
At the top of the trade center.
Top
the
of the trade
restaurant,
center, yes. Yeah.
And there was people in the restaurant that morning who actually died.
All of
as
them,
well.
they did not survive, actually.
They didn't,
that day, yes.
yeah.
I think nobody from 92nd floor or 93rd floor above counterfeit, they couldn't make it down because it was... I had actually a good friend of mine, actually, also, he passed away, and he worked for a company called Car Future. Car Future was on 92nd floor. None of them made it, actually. I always say that 9/11 is my new birthday because a new life to start, a new life here on earth here. I always, to be ready, spiritually have to be ready. You never know what day you will live this life here.
To learn more, please go to 20for20podcast.com. And before we close, a special message from a very dear friend of mine.
Hi, this is actor Robert John Burke. I've been fortunate to be a part of projects like Tombstone, Law & Order Special Victims Unit, Gossip Girl, Rescue Me. But I've been even more fortunate to become friends with incredible first responders like your host, Nils Jorgensen. Folks who are willing to sacrifice every single one of their tomorrows so that we can have our today. As Nils so powerfully says, I lost a lot of my friends on 9/11, including my best friend. And I felt like I had to pick up the flag for them. So I became a volunteer firefighter, and I have been ever since. It's why I'm so grateful you're listening to the 20 for 20 podcast. I hope you'll subscribe, rate, and review it, and share it with 5 friends because these stories are so important. Thanks for listening.